Good morning, everyone. This is Louise from Eleanor Grace. I hope you're all keeping well. I thought I would do a little beginner's video this morning on feather stitch, which is a stitch that I use a lot. It's a really versatile stitch and it does cover a lot of ground. It also looks really lovely, especially if you overlap the pieces a bit. It does look very much like sort of reeds or flower stalks and can be used really well with other stitches such as French knots. And I use it probably the most in all my stitching. I think it's probably my favourite stitch. So just to give you an example of how it's been used here, if I can come down a little bit, then we have its use across here, overlapping in different colours to give a sort of floral effect with the French knots being like buds. So I will show you another couple of examples where I've used it. It is, as I say, something that I do use a lot, and it is really pretty, really lovely stitch. Quite simple once you get going, but I think a lot of people get stuck on it, so I thought I'd do an introduction to that. So to show this, I've got a practice piece here, which you can see has got lots of holes and creases, but that doesn't matter. It's just a piece of calico, and it's well worth doing something like this. A bit of calico, a bit of cotton, and backing it with felt, and just going around the edge with a simple running stitch just to tack the two pieces together. And you can use this to practice different stitches, colour combinations, to see how you can get on with them. So I'm going to show you a little bit with the feather stitch. Now I am left-handed, so apologies to those who are right-handed who might find this a little bit confusing. Hopefully you'll still be able to make sense of it. The thing to remember with a feather stitch is you're trying to create a U shape, and the stitch does generally move left and right. So if you've gone left previously, you tend to go right on the next stitch. You don't have to, you can keep going across the bit of work, but generally to get that sort of nature-like sort of look, you want it to go left and right, left and right. So I'm going to start here. Now this is the first point of my U. If you can imagine a U shape here, that's what I'm trying to create. Now with the feather stitch, it's a sort of cousin of the fly stitch, a slightly unruly cousin who doesn't have the order that the fly stitch does. So when I'm making a U stitch, I'm not going to go in exactly on a level with it here. I'm either going to go slightly up or down to make it look a bit more naturalistic. So in here I'm going to go in down a little bit, thinking I'm just going to create this U shape. And the U shape is created by you coming up and catching the thread on the third point. So if I pull that too, you can see we get a sort of U shape. So because I've gone right-sided that time, I'm going to go left the next time. So keeping that there, going to either be coming up or down. So I won't be going strictly on a line with this because that will make it a bit too uniform. So I'll go slightly down on this one, and then I'm going to come up again thinking of getting that U shape here. So if I go down there, you see you start to get this shape. I tend to think it looks a bit like a reed bed, or as I say, a flower stalk with the opportunity to have lots of lovely little buds on it. So again, I've gone to the right because I went to the left last time. I've come up and I've caught that stitch. Now you want to give it a little bit of tension because you want your piece to lie flat, but not so it's really tight. But when you've gone through your stitch, just give it a little bit of tension. If I go through there, you can see where I'm going to come up again here, which will be around there to create that U shape. There you go, and you continue going on like that. You might even just do a few stitches, or you might go all the way down the piece like I often do. As I say, it's a stitch that covers a lot of ground, and when you incorporate something else in it, like having some French knots as buds here, then it can look really spectacular. So I'm going to do a couple more. So I've gone left-sided that time, and then I'm going to go right-sided, and then to sort of sign that off, or if you've run out of thread, you can do the same thing. Say you've got to this point and you've run out of thread, or that's where you're going to stop. What you do is come up. Now you need to catch this last piece here, so you just go back in more or less where you came out in that stitch to finish it off, and then you can tie it off at the back. If you needed to continue, you could then come up with a fresh piece of thread and keep going, but in that case I'm going to turn that over. I'm going to just snip that off, and I'm going to do another piece in another thread, a sort of contrasting thread, and also a different type of thread. Most of the time I tend to work in cotton perlé 8, which is very easy to use for beginners, and it's also gives a really nice sheen. I do also sometimes use cotton perlé 12. That's a lot thinner though. And this is a flax linen thread. It's a bit harder. It's quite waxy and it's quite tough. So the thicker or the harder the thread, the more difficult it is to get through. But it just shows you how you can use different threads. So again, I'm going in. I'm going to overlap, as you can see. Just going to overlap that. So I'm going to come up here, create the U. So that's the second point. And I'm going to come up somewhere here to create that U shape. And then I've got a loose bit of thread there. I'm going to go over to the side here, just giving that a bit of tension. Going over to the side here, slightly up, slightly down, to the right, come up again there. And as I say, with this particular thread, because it's a bit thicker, I'm going to cut off this little strand here because it's driving me mad. Because it's a bit thicker, you can probably see the difference. It's a bit thicker, it's a bit tauter than this cotton perlé. So linen thread is a bit of a challenge, but it's nice and it gives a nice effect, and it does give a different effect to the cotton perlé. I do like a bit of texture. Texture is really good. So you can see there I've created another stitch to the left. So in this case I'm going to go to the right. And there we go. So a couple more to do, and then I'm going to go back to my piece to show you how it can look in different threads. So I'm going to the right there, just making sure I've got a bit of tension. There we go. So you can imagine how that could fill and expand. So, if you're starting off and you don't know, you've got a blank bit of fabric and you don't know where to go, this can fill a great amount of space quite quickly. And it does look gorgeous, especially when interspersed with French knots, which I'm going to do next as the next video, so I can show you that. And I'm just going to tie that off. So as I say, it's a cousin of the fly stitch, if you like. The fly stitch is more ordered, and you tend to want the same shape. I will also do a fly stitch one as well for you at some point, but this is a bit more random, and as I say, I like the natural look that it gives. It does look quite naturalistic, and it does look, you know, like something from the natural world, which I love. And I have my garden, which it gives me a lot of inspiration. So if I go back to the pieces, I can show you these again. So here we go. I'll bring this down a little bit. So you can see the use here with the pink and the green, and the overlapping of those gives a really nice effect. It's also very good, and one of my main way of sort of doing slow stitching is to always trying to be attaching two pieces of fabric together, and this is a really good way of attaching. It's a good stitch because it's going, you can see alternating either side, so it's really good for that. And the heart, as you can see, if I turn it on, I've gone this way, so it's something a bit different. I mean, it's the same, exactly the same technique, but it's going on an angle, which is something which I hadn't sort of tried before. But obviously, I worked it this way, so it was working towards me. And as you can see again, it's going over the top of things, like a piece of ribbon on top of another layer of fabric. So I like to layer up. That does look really nice. And I did go a bit mad here with the French knots, didn't I? But it does give a lovely appearance. So I've got a couple more pieces to show you which I've used it on. Again, this one a bit of a softer palette. I've just used it at the top here, just a little bit, and just a bit randomly, interspersed with sort of other stitching here. But it, you know, it does sort of bring it all together, and in a brighter colourway, which is working a bit outside my comfort zone. But I tend to work with pastels or with dual colours, so I do like something a bit bright and a bit sort of dramatic. As you can see again, I've used it across pieces of fabric, so it's sort of melded them down there onto the piece. And I've got other stitches there. Some of these I will be doing as well. This is a fly stitch across here, so as you can see, it's similar, but it is different. So I will do one on that, and other types of stitching: seed stitch, lazy daisies, chain stitch, bullion, woven wheels. All of these things I will do some videos on for you. And finally, this one. Again, I just have a little bit at the top here where I've started off. It's very often the first sort of stitch I go to. I look at where I can incorporate it because I do love it. I've interspersed it with some herringbone stitch, which is a video that's coming shortly. And again, lazy daisies, seed stitch, bit of a plique there with some French knots, some buttons there, just stitched on a bit of thick sort of ribbon there. And again, some sort of running stitch / sort of seed stitch there. So, you know, these are all lovely stitches that you can use, and I will be doing videos on all of them. But finally, I'll go back to my piece just to show you how different it looks in different fabrics, so in different threads. So you've got the sort of standard cotton perlé here, which is, as I say, what I use quite a lot. These different cotton perlés. Then I've got it here in wool, which is really different. I mean, the thicker the thread is, the more difficult it is, I will say that. So if you're fairly new, I'd say a cotton perlé 8 would be a good start. Otherwise, you could use embroidery thread, you know, perhaps 2 to 4 strands, depending on how sort of thick you want it to appear. But as you can see from my piece as well, doing it in different thicknesses overlapping each other does give it, you know, a bit of interest. It does make it a bit different. So so yeah, you can do, really, the sky's the limit, really. And the only you know, restriction is your imagination. And as we know, we should all be as free as possible to run wild with it. So I do hope this was helpful for you to get an idea of the feather stitch, and I'd love to know in the comments if that's helped, or if there's anything else you'd like to see. As I said, I will be looking at doing all of these stitches, so there's a whole heap of them here to come. So you will be getting those over the next few weeks and months. But I would say a feather stitch is a really good way to start, especially if you're pretty new to slow stitching embroidery. That's it. So thanks very much, everyone, and I will catch up with you again soon. Bye bye.